You know what's wild? The way guys act like they're these perfect moral beings, but then turn around and use you for the exact thing they claim they'd never respect. Like, how does that add up? Sebastian swore he was above me because of my side gig, but he sure didn't mind having me around whenever it worked for him. And now somehow I'm the one who should have known better. I'm Daisy, I'm 24, and this whole thing started about a year ago when I met Sebastian at a house party through some mutuals. He gave off a different vibe than the guys I usually hooked up with. Stable, professional, had his own car, seemed like he actually had his life on track, rare for dudes our age. We started hanging out often. Movies, casual dinners, chill dates that actually felt normal. For once, it felt like something real could come out of it, which is funny now because I should have known better. Here's the part people don't like talking about. I've been doing OnlyFans for 2 years. Not because I'm some wild girl like people assume, but because rent doesn't cover itself and retail pay is a joke. It's easy money, mostly photos, some videos, a little collab work here and there. Nothing extreme compared to others. I knew I'd have to tell Sebastian eventually, but timing is everything. You can't just throw that into the middle of the honeymoon phase. After about 6 weeks, I finally said it. Tried to play it casual like, hey, just so you know, I do some content stuff on the side. His whole vibe changed instantly. Not mad, but that cold, checked out kind of distant. That's when I realized I messed up the timing. He asked to see it, so I showed him. My page was mostly solo, a few collabs, nothing too crazy, but I could tell by his face it wasn't landing well. He got quiet, thoughtful, asking how long I'd been doing it and if I was planning to stop. I was honest. I said the money was good and I wasn't planning on quitting. By the end of that night, he hit me with, "We should just be friends." Just friends. After 6 weeks of acting like he was genuinely into me. I was crushed, but I tried to play it off. I wasn't about to beg him or promise to quit for some guy I barely knew. I figured maybe with time he'd see I was still the same person he liked hanging out with. So we stayed friends, but the tension never left. He'd text me late, invite me over, watch movies on his couch, but always with this invisible wall. I could tell he still wanted me, the looks, the closeness, the way his energy shifted, but he kept trying to act noble about it. Like I was good enough to want, but not good enough to actually claim. Then one night after some drinks, it happened. I won't lie, I wanted it too. I'd been holding back for months, and the chemistry was still there. The sex was amazing. The next morning, though, he made it clear nothing had changed. Still just friends, except now with benefits. And I agreed, because having part of him felt better than losing him completely. I thought maybe if I showed him who I really was outside of OnlyFans, he'd eventually change his mind. So I played the cool girl. Never asked for more, never acted jealous when his phone blew up, never complained when plans suddenly shifted. For months it worked. We hung out, hooked up, sometimes stayed over, sometimes I'd leave at midnight if he got weird. I kept doing my content because I wasn't giving up my income for someone who wouldn't even call me his girlfriend. Still, I secretly hoped it would grow into something real. And honestly, it almost felt like it did. He cooked for me sometimes, bought me little things I mentioned, we'd have long talks that felt intimate. It was basically a relationship without the title. Which made it worse whenever he'd pull back and remind me we were just friends. I see now how sad that was, but back then, I told myself I was being patient. That if I proved I wasn't just the OnlyFans girl, he'd eventually let me in fully. I even started changing small things about myself. Posting less on my page, making myself more available for him, dressing differently when we hung out. I started dressing more conservatively, acting more like girlfriend material. I thought if I showed him a side of me that wasn't tied to my work, he might finally see me differently. But Sebastian never changed. If anything, he grew more comfortable keeping me in a box, his secret. I was the girl he could call when he was bored or wanted sex, but never the girl he'd bring to a wedding or introduce to his coworkers. Everything shifted when he casually told me he wanted to stop hooking up because he was seeing someone else. Just like that. After months of our situation working perfectly for him, he was ready to move on to someone he thought was worthy. The way he said it, like he was canceling a streaming subscription, cut even deeper. I tried to act unbothered, but I was crushed. I had believed all those late-night talks, the way he looked at me, meant something. Turns out, I was just filling time until someone better came along. When I asked why he could suddenly do relationships but not with me, he dodged with vague lines about timing. I pressed him, needing to know what I was missing. What did she have that I didn't? What made her girlfriend material while I wasn't? That's when he finally admitted it, my OnlyFans. He said he respected me as a person, but he could never picture himself in a real relationship with someone who made money that way. Hearing it out loud was brutal. Not just because of what he said, but how he said it, like my content made me unworthy of love, yet perfectly fine to sleep with whenever he wanted. I snapped. I told him he'd used me for months, all while knowing he'd never take me seriously. He tried to claim I'd agreed to the friends with benefits setup, which was true, but that wasn't the point. The truth was, he was fine with my work as long as it benefited him, but once it came to respect and commitment, suddenly he had morals. I told him straight. He was a hypocrite. He got defensive, insisting I was overcomplicating things, that we'd both enjoyed what we had. As if that excused it. The fight ended with me storming out. No closure, no real ending, just me angry and hurt, and him probably relieved I was gone. After that, Sebastian cut me off completely. No texts, no late-night hangouts. I was erased from his life like I'd never been there, and that stung more than the initial rejection. Through friends, I found out he was already serious with his new girl, Bella. Of course, she was everything I wasn't: professional career, volunteering on weekends, wholesome image, probably never posted a suggestive photo in her life. The perfect girlfriend for a guy who decided I was undateable. What killed me was how fast it all happened. Within weeks, they were going to dinners with his friends, posting couple pictures, doing everything he'd never once considered doing with me. That's when it hit me. He'd been waiting for someone like her the whole time, while I was just filling space. I tried to move on, but bitterness lingered. He got to enjoy me when it suited him, then walked away clean, straight into a real relationship. Meanwhile, I felt like I'd wasted nearly a year on someone who never saw me as more than a placeholder. I didn't stop my content. If anything, I doubled down and earned more. But it still messed with my head. Because deep down, I realized a lot of guys probably think like Sebastian. They're fine with it when it serves them, but they'll never give respect or commitment to the women who do it. It was a harsh lesson, but at least I learned it before I wasted even more time. Still, seeing how quickly he replaced me burned. Like I had meant nothing more than a convenient option. After that, I became ruthless about weeding out guys with judgment. If anyone so much as hinted at having an issue with my work, I cut them off immediately. I wasn't going to repeat the same mistake. Months passed, and I thought I was over Sebastian, until I started hearing through mutual friends just how happy he was with Bella. They started hitting all the milestones I was never even close to with him. Moving in together, meeting families, going to weddings as a couple. All the things he never once offered me. It stung because I realized he had probably never even pictured me as someone worth introducing to his parents or planning a future with. I was just the stand-in, the girl to keep him entertained until the real girlfriend showed up. Someone who fit his version of respectable. Someone whose job he could proudly mention at dinner without feeling ashamed. Friends would drop little comments, how Sebastian and Bella had gone to a cousin's wedding together, or how they spent the holidays with his family. Normal couple things. Things I'd never even been considered for. Each reminder was like another confirmation. I'd never been enough for the life I actually wanted with him. I tried dating again, but I couldn't stop comparing. I started being upfront about my work right away, almost aggressively, just so I'd never waste months waiting for rejection again. Some guys were fine with it, others weren't. At least I knew early. The problem was, the ones who accepted it often did so for the wrong reasons. They either wanted to be involved in my content or turned supportive until things got serious. Then suddenly it became an issue. Just like Sebastian. It felt like I couldn't win. Either men dismissed me right away or they fetishized me, never really seeing me beyond the work. That's what had made Sebastian different at first. He'd liked me for me, before he knew. Which is why it hurt so much when he pushed me into the hookup-only box. The whole thing taught me that people who judge me for what I do aren't worth my time. If Sebastian wanted his picture-perfect relationship, he could have it. I wasn't going to beg to be loved by someone who thought I was good enough to sleep with, but not good enough to stand beside. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But, truthfully, it wrecked my self-esteem more than I wanted to admit. I started wondering if maybe I was limiting myself, if maybe I was sabotaging my own chances at something real. About 10 months later, I found out through a friend that Sebastian and Bella were engaged. 10 months. It had taken him almost a year of keeping me at arm's length to say he wasn't ready for anything serious, and then less than a year later, he was ready to marry someone else. The math was brutal. He was probably looking at rings while I was still in his bed. Maybe he'd already been planning a future, just not with me. Never with me. I wish I could say I handled it well, but I didn't. I sent him this long, messy text in the middle of the night. Called him a liar and a hypocrite, accused him of using me as practice until he found someone real. Told him he was pathetic for never being honest about what I really meant to him. I wrote that he'd wasted nearly a year of my life, keeping me as his personal convenience instead of just admitting I wasn't good enough for him. I hit send at 2 a.m., drunk and angry, and instantly regretted it. Not because it wasn't true, but because it made me look desperate, like I was still hoping for a response. He never replied. And somehow that hurt the most. To him, I wasn't even worth a response. I was just a closed chapter, forgotten. Some girl he'd hooked up with before he met his wife. When the engagement photos hit social media, it was unbearable. Sebastian grinning bigger than I'd ever seen, Bella glowing like she belonged in a magazine spread. They looked wholesome and perfect, everything I apparently could never be because of my choices. I deleted him from everywhere after that. But the damage was done. I couldn't stop replaying how easily he replaced me. How quickly he gave someone else the future I'd wanted. It made me wonder if he'd been right, that my work made me unfit for real commitment. That I'd been naive to think I could have both the financial freedom and the relationship. Either way, he got his fairy tale ending, and I was left with a harsh reality check. Some women get the ring, the house, the family. Others get used until the real thing comes along. I guess now I know which one I am. But here's the thing, I'm not even mad anymore. Sebastian showed me who he was. The type of man who could make a girl feel special in private, but never acknowledge her in public. Who could sleep with someone for months, but never respect her enough to introduce her to his friends. Bella could have him, along with his double standards and self-righteousness. I'd rather be alone than loved by someone who thinks I'm beneath them. At least, that's what I tell myself when I'm up at 2 a.m., posting content and wondering if this really is the life I want. Still, I make good money. I'm independent. And I don't have to carry the weight of some guy's judgment about my choices. Sebastian can keep his perfect little life with his perfect little wife. I'm doing just fine without him.